All right, let's bring in Rich Gannon to the show. You can hear him on SiriusXM and just phenomenal analysis all the time. He was just saying he watched all the Bears games, which I'm sorry about that.
I have to for work. So, I can't go on the show on Monday and talk about games I hadn't watched. So it can be stressful. I've got some equipment at the house that allows me to go back and watch cut-ups. Like if I just wanted to watch all of Caleb Williams' third down throws, I have that ability to do that. So it's great, but there's long weekends in the Gannon household.
I try to think about your career, and you look at young quarterbacks, and you sat early, and you really didn't pop to your best level until your mid-30s numbers-wise. Do you think, like when you watch a Caleb or a Bryce Young or the guys that actually do struggle, are you sitting there thinking he'd be way better off if he sat a year?
I think so many of these young quarterbacks come into our game and they're not ready to play. And I think when you look at it, I think the first thing is communication. Like a lot of these guys aren't calling plays in the huddle in college. They look over to the sidelines and somebody's holding up a picture of an apple and everybody knows what to do. But when you come to the NFL, you got to call the protection, the concept, the shift, the motion. There's a lot of verbiage, and a lot of these guys get overwhelmed by it early. They're not ready, and I give Caleb Williams a lot of credit for this. This guy stood in there and took a beating like a man. He played in all 17 games. I think he overcame a lot of adversity. I think he got better in stretches, and I think he showed his teammates that he's willing to be that guy. So, in fairness, it's not easy as a young quarterback, and it's especially not easy when you fire the offensive coordinator, you replace him. It's just it was a very dysfunctional environment for the young quarterback in his first season.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I'm curious what coach made that impact on you to really at the NFL level take it to that next level, and why that had that impact.
This could be the John Gruden moment. I'm not sure.
So I always call it the Alex Smith syndrome. So Alex had 7 different coordinators in I think his first 8 seasons in the NFL, and you look at Baker Mayfield. I think he's had a different coordinator in the last 8 seasons. I mean, Jalen Hurts has had 4 different coordinators in Philadelphia, something crazy. It's hard when you're constantly – it'd be like you guys going to school in your first year, we're going to learn French in high school. And then your second year, you come back, well, now we're going to learn Spanish. Your third year, let's try German. You have nothing to fall back on. There's no history. There's no continuity. That they change the terminology and verbiage. That's really stressful. For me, that happened in Minnesota. I had 3 different play callers in my first 6 years in the league. No one ever really gave me the keys to the car. I got traded to Washington. I was there 1 year. Not even. I was there. I got there in August. The season was over in December. I had rotator cuff surgery. I was out of football a year. I was thinking about going to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Oh, boy.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, things were tough. and then I got a chance to sign with Marty Schottenheimer, the Kansas City Chiefs. And I wasn't even the starter there in 95. So I was there for 4 years, got a chance to play a little bit, played some good ball, and then got a chance in 1999 when I was in my mid-30s by John Gruden sticking out his neck for me and saying, I want this guy to be our quarterback. And I always say it's so important when you, as the quarterback position, to have somebody who believes in you.
Sure.
Believes enough in you to put their neck out on the line and say, hey, look, we're gonna do this together. And we did.
And doesn't it feel like Ben Johnson's going to the Bears really shows that he believes in Caleb Williams? After a year of seeing a lot of ups and downs, he's in the division. They're trying to get to the Super Bowl. He comes to a 5-win team. I feel like that speaks volumes to how much he actually believes he can do what you're talking about.
Does he have any other choice?
That's a good point.
Let me just tell you this number. We've fired 37 coaches in the last 5 years. 37 coaches have been fired. It's insane. And they're all getting fired for the same reason. Bill Belichick got fired 2 years ago. Why? Because the quarterback room isn't right. And that's what happens. So if you come in and you can't, I don't want to say fix Caleb Williams because I think there's a lot of good things to like there. But if Caleb Williams can't get better and the team can't start winning games in that division, then it doesn't really matter how much you've been paid. In a couple of years, you're going to be on the hot seat. That's just the nature of that business anymore. And so, I think you look at my former team, the Raiders, they've had 9 head coaches since 2011. 9!
It's crazy.
The Jacksonville Jaguars have had 9 as well. And so I talked to Tony Boselli yesterday. If you can't figure that out, if you're constantly firing the head coach, constantly firing coordinators, constantly replacing the quarterbacks, you can't survive, especially in a division like the North. I mean, the Packers aren't going anywhere. You look at what's going on in Detroit. They've got it rolling on. And I just think that Minnesota's got a good situation. They've got a good young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy that they like. The Bears got a lot of catching up to do in that division.
Yeah, but they went out and they paid, the guy that seemed to be the hottest commodity this year in the coaching cycle. I'm just curious, it's a little bit a departure from business in the past for the Chicago Bears? That sounds like they give him $13 million a year. Just thinking, what was your reaction when he landed in Chicago in terms of the fit and how well you think it might go?
I think he was the second hottest candidate out there. I think Mike Vrabel was the guy that a lot of teams wanted. I think the Raiders wanted to get a shot at that. I think Robert Kraft got out in front of it and hired what I thought was the best coach available. When you look at his background, his experience, his ability to command a room, I think Ben Johnson is an exciting young coach. I'm curious to see what he can do in terms of the entire football team. I think when you look at Dan Campbell, Dan's done a really good job. Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell coaching the entire team. And I think we get so caught up in let's go out and hire a coach that can coach Caleb Williams. Yeah. Great idea. How about the other 52 guys on the team? We better have somebody who can oversee the special teams, guys that can step in and fix when we're having problems defensively.
Yep.
And I think, somebody can come in and evaluate the entire roster, and I'm hoping he can do that. Tell you what, they got to get better up front. You talk about the good team, like these two teams right now, the Philadelphia Eagles, they got the best offensive line in football. Detroit Lions probably the second best offensive line in football. The Bears have a lot of work to do up front.
Your journey, and just thinking about it, it'd be near impossible to happen today that some coach, John Gruden, would stick his neck. I want this 35-year-old as my starting quarterback. I believe in him. How did you keep your confidence that if I get this shot, I can do it?
I knew I could play. I just knew that I needed the opportunity and someone to believe in me. But I look at Baker Mayfield, guys. I mean, think about Baker Mayfield. He was in Cleveland. They won a road playoff game against Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
And then he hurts his shoulder. Then they kick him to the curb. Who's their quarterback now? I mean, the guy who's got an Achilles rupture, second surgery. They're paying him a boatload of money. He can't play. And I look at him, and then they kick him to the curb. Then he goes to Carolina. They don't want him. Then he goes out he flies out for the Rams and plays a couple games for them. And then he goes to Tampa 2 years ago. And they basically told him, hey, we're not even going to guarantee you the starter. You have to win the job in training camp. He won the job in training camp, won a division last year. This past season, they came back and won another division. He played great football. And Baker Mayfield, I'm just telling you, there's some Baker Mayfields out there. And this Daniel Jones may be one of them. I'm just telling you, this kid can play football. He had a really bad, a lot like my situation with the Giants. It was a really dysfunctional environment, but keep your eyes on Daniel Jones. I think he's going to wind up somewhere this season.
And he's currently on the same team as Sam Darnold, who you could also put in.
I think both of those guys are gone. I think they've made up their mind about J.J. McCarthy. I think when the Bears play the Vikings next year, you're going to see J.J. McCarthy under center.
I think so, too.
And when you bring up Baker Mayfield, I mean, he comes from the same college coaching tree as Caleb Williams came from. So I'm curious from your perspective, watching the Bears games this year, what you saw from Caleb. You talk about what he did well, but I'm curious what you think he needs to get better at here going into his second season.
Yeah, really simple. I think really understanding protections, right? Being a master of his domain, understanding protections inside and out, understanding all the concepts in the passing game. He has a busy spring. Like, he's got a new coach coming in, a new coordinator, and new verbiage and terminology. He's got to learn a lot, and he's got to be able to process and play fast. The best quarterbacks in our game play fast. They're not at the line of scrimmage thinking about how many feet, how many steps do I take on the drop, and who's doing that. They've done it over and over again. And the ability, I think, to better understand defensive football, situational football, down and distance, red zone, third down, those type of things. But the big thing with him is his feet. Like, I think, you look at his feet, when his feet are in rhythm, when he gets the ball out on time, he makes a lot of plays off script. But at times, I always say, sometimes the best play, the only play, is to throw it away and live for another down. Yep. This kid doesn't know that. This kid's so athletic that he thinks he can make every play. He's really strong in the pocket, and he avoids a lot of sacks, but he takes way too many sacks.
Isn't
so if
crazy?
I'm coaching Caleb Williams, the first two things we do to start the offseason program, we're going to look at the sack reel. We're going to go through every play in the sack reel. I'm going to talk about why it happened. Was it a protection issue? Did the left tackle swing and miss? Did you hold it too long? Did you miss the hot read? Why are we taking these sacks? What's the down and distance? If it's 3rd and 12, why are we taking a sack on 3rd and 12?
Right.
Your odds of converting a 3rd and 12 are about 16%. Hey, it's drop back. If it's there, pull the trigger. If it's not, check the ball down. But we're not going to take a sack and turn the ball over. Then we're going to look at the interception reel. Let's go back and look at every interception. Let's go back and clean up what happened last year before we start to move forward.
So I want you living in reality here. For somebody who's struggling with that and is lining up people in the wrong way, how fast can you learn that realistically?
Oh, no, he's a smart kid. I think he can retain a lot of information. I think Ben's going to really help him, I think, streamline some things. And look, I think he had two guys calling plays that, didn't do a lot of it and weren't really good at it. And I think you bring in somebody who's really good at it, and's got a history of doing it, I think that can really help the young quarterback.
It's interesting.
Just got to get those completions.
No, I loved
completions.
I loved hearing
it's all about completions. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
You talk about what are your goals in the beginning of the season? It's like 70%. Like that's the standard. We want to complete 70%. Well, how do you do it? Like we're not going to sit there and wait for the guy to come open. We're going to get the ball into the hands of the playmakers and let them do what they do best.
That's awesome. I mean, honestly, this is great stuff.
Why am I not coaching quarterbacks in Chicago?
I don't know. You want to join the staff?
I've had opportunities.
I will fly.
I hope you have. Yeah.
I will fly to Chicago right now. I like for me. So this is great because for fans, when we watch games, sacks are an offensive line stat to fans.
They are.
And a play color stat. But to evaluators, it's a quarterback stat. So I give advice to a fan like me of how I can understand better to when I'm watching a game to identify that one's on the quarterback.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell. Like, you got a free rusher off the edge. Was the tackle supposed to fan, or was the quarterback not aware that wasn't picked up? I mean, there's a lot of, sometimes it's hard. I mean, if you watch enough of it, you can kind of get a sense of it. Usually if it's like a left tackle who's been in the league 10 years, you know what I mean? And the quarterback has been in the league 10 weeks, you know what I mean? Thinks yourself, probably this guy. But I think some of them are just on these quarterbacks. The game is going way too fast. I just remember when I was a rookie, I was explaining it to you this way. When you're a 16-year-old, you're driving a car for the first time, you got blinders on. All you see is the car in front of you, right? You see the traffic light. That's all you see. As your field expands, you get to be a real experienced driver. You see the oncoming traffic. You see cars behind you. You see a pedestrian in the crosswalk. And everything begins to slow down, right?
That's great.
And so for a young quarterback, it's going at you so fast, man, you're only seeing certain things. As a veteran quarterback, you're seeing the heels of the corner on the right side at 8, the heels over here at 10. You're seeing that safety 2 yards outside the number where he's usually 2 yards. You're starting to see things. Game's starting to slow down. You're starting to be able to and you start to have a fastball. You start to have tools in your toolbox to be able to get in and out of bad plays, change protections, do those type of things. That's what's next for Caleb Williams.
That's great. When I got my license, I sensed that. And
that was like, 22, 23?
Yeah, exactly right. They wouldn't give me a license. They shouldn't have. The first thing I did when I was 16 years old, I got my license. I felt nervous. I got on the highway and drove to Wrigley Field from my house in Northwest Indiana because I knew, I was like, if I'm going to figure this out, I got to figure it out on the highway. And that's what I did. I drove straight to Wrigley Field. First day I got my license. True story.
That's pretty good. Most people can't make it through Chicago traffic.
No.
It's a fantastic story, Greg.
Thank you.
Rich, thanks so much for being here. We know you got to run.
Man. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks
for having me.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.